Hi everybody, welcome back to the Master Flow Plumbing YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about doing some basic repairs on your outdoor hose faucets or hose spigot, whatever you will. Sometimes they're called hose bibs, hose spigots, hose faucets. It's all good. Sometimes it's silcock. This is actually the technical term for it. Anyways, we're going to talk about some basic repairs on them today. But before we begin, I'd like you to go down to that right-hand corner over there and go ahead and click the subscribe button, like and comment on our videos, as it does help us a lot. Okay, so this particular hose faucet right here, or hose bib, is actually a Woodford, is the brand name on it. And this particular one is a model 17CP-10-MH. Now, I can't tell you what the MH and the 17CP stand for exactly, but the 10 is the actual overall length of it. Now, we're in a cold state, so we have to actually use what is called a frost-free hose spigot. The difference is that if you're in a warm state, chances are you just have a hose spigot that is just basically, this front portion of it right here, without all this other stuff on it possibly, but it just connects to a copper pipe and it shuts off out here at this point on the outside of the house. These are designed to shut off on the inside of the house. The turnoff point is actually all the way back here at this end. I don't know if you can look down into that, see that piece turning inside there? Well, that is actually the turnoff point. The idea being is that that extends all the way into your house, where it's actually warm all year round. And that's supposed to prevent them from freezing and breaking. However, these do still freeze and break. And at the end of the video, I'll give you a couple of ideas on why that happens. So today, we're dealing with a house here that you can't gain access to this on the inside of the house very easily without cutting open some walls. This particular one is in a wall with a bathtub on one side and kitchen cabinets on the other side. And there's no real good, easy way to get in there. Well, this particular one does not have any freeze damage to it. It just has a couple of problems. It leaks a little bit out of this top cap right here, which is actually called a vacuum breaker. This is an anti-siphon device to prevent any kind of cross-contamination if you have a hose hooked up to this and have it going into something that you shouldn't, like some chemicals or, carpet cleaners always put the hose in their tanks and do stuff like that. Well, in the event of a pressure loss, that device right there stops it from siphoning back into the house and into the water system beyond your house sometimes. This particular one also leaks out right down here around this nut right here behind the handle. We'll talk about that in just a second. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to just completely rebuild this. And we're going to do it actually using the parts from a brand new one. And we're going to basically discard this part that you see right here. We're going to just take the guts out of it. We're going to take the guts out of this. And I'm going to show you how to simply do that. Now, the only way that works is if it is indeed the same brand and the same overall length. Okay, now this is a very specific model. It is the Woodford brand. There are many other brands on the market. However, a lot of them do work in a similar fashion. So you may be able to apply a lot of these tricks to any brand, but just make sure you have the parts specific to the brand hose faucet that you are trying to repair, because they won't work. They don't interchange. Okay, so I'm going to start with taking the guts out of this one and showing you how that actually works. And then you can buy these parts separate. You don't have to rob them out of an entire device like this. Like I said, in this particular case, that's what we're going to do. But they do sell the parts for this separate. They do sell the handle separate, and then the guts for this they do sell separate also. However, they are about the same price as the whole thing. So sometimes when I don't have those parts kits on the truck, I just go ahead and do it this way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I actually unscrewed that packing nut right there, and I'll show you again on that one. But you unscrew that, and then you open this up, get it completely unscrewed, and then at a certain point you can actually just pull it right out of here like this. So you can see that's actually what it does. So you can see that actually goes all the way back to that inside point back there on the inside of the house, and that's where it actually does its turn off. All right, so I told you one of the things that you want to make sure of that I told you I'd talk about at the end of the video, but I'll go ahead and mention now. When we see freeze damage to what's left right here on these particular type of devices right here, 99% of the time it's because a customer left their garden hose hooked up to it all winter. The reason why you don't want to do that is because when you turn the water off on the inside of the house for the winter for your hose faucets, you want to make sure that hose is unhooked from it so that this tube right here can indeed empty. All right, it shuts off back here, but there's still water trapped in here, and if you don't let that out, and it gets exposed to cold water, it's going to freeze and break. And the cool thing about these is that when that happens, it won't necessarily flood your house, at least not immediately. What happens most of the time is people try to use these things in the springtime without checking them out thoroughly. And if there's a split in here, when they turn it on, you know, sometimes after 10 or 15 minutes, they ask themselves, why is my water pressure not very good coming out of my hose? Well, chances are it's because there's a split somewhere on this, on the inside of the wall, and it's probably flooding your basement as you're trying to use it. So I always tell people at the beginning of the year, when you use these things for the first time, have a wife or a child or a husband or a friend, you know, somebody down in your basement as you're using your hose faucets, you know, test them all out on one morning on a Saturday or whatever, and have somebody down in the basement looking for any water cascading down the walls or anything like that. So all right, well, so I got this part out of here. I'm gonna go ahead and also pop this cap off of here, which is sometimes not easy to do, but you can do it any method you need to get this cap off. Okay, there it is, it's off. We're going to hang on to that because we're going to likely reuse it, but we're also going to be able to reuse that. Now, before I get to that part, I'm going to go ahead and do this first part. I'm going to get this cap off of this one. Well, you can see this one actually came off quite easy. So we're going to set that off to the side. And what I'm going to do here, okay, this is really just a check valve inside of this. And again, I already have the water off at this house, or to this hose spigot, so we're going to go ahead and gently try to unscrew this piece. And if it breaks, it's not the end of the world, but you do have to get the pieces back out. But so once you get it loose like that, you're just going to unscrew the rest of it by hand. I'll talk for a minute to try to explain to you how this works. So basically there's a little seat right there like that. It fits up inside of here into this hole. It's pretty precise. So what happens is it raises up when you turn on the water. And you can see this one, here's why it was leaking. Okay, see how that's actually messed up right there? That's why this one was leaking the way it was. So anyways, the way they work is they're down in there. When you turn on the water, it forces that piece up into this other piece, and it stops the water from going down inside there. When there's pressure loss, that piece drops back down, and as it tries to siphon water back from the hose and whatever the hose is in, it actually just spills out on the ground right there. That's what that device actually does. It's a safety device to protect the water supply. All right, so now that we've got that one out of there, we're going to go ahead and take this one out of this one pretty much the same way. I'm going to go ahead and loosen it gently. You don't want to squeeze them too hard or you'll crack them. So I'm going to go ahead and get that piece out. And you can see the piece is already in there. I'm going to make sure I don't have any dirt or crud inside of this. Everything looks pretty good there. Now that piece wants to fall out pretty easily. So it's a little bit tricky sometimes to get them in there. Sometimes I have the best luck just doing it this way. I set this piece in there centered like so, and then I go ahead and get this started over it. There's a little tiny piece that comes through that center hole. And you see I got it right there. It wasn't that difficult to do. And typically hand tight is okay on these, as long as you can get it screwed in all the way like I just did on that one. All right, so on the next step, to rebuild the rest of this is the packing nut. Okay, now so sometimes I'm going to tell you about another little trick. If you ever go to turn one of these on and you got a pretty steady stream of water dripping out from behind this handle from this nut right here, it's called a packing nut. And the cure for that most of the time is actually just to snug that nut just a little bit like that until it stops dripping. And you can do that while the water's running or turned on to it. So that's one way to fix a leak from a packing nut. This particular case, we're going to just go ahead and replace all that anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen this packing nut up all the way. I'm going to take that until it comes out like that. And then I'm going to take this, unscrew it until I can pull that piece out. Sometimes they're a little tricky to pull out. There you go. You can see how that water's drained out right there. That's what you want it to do in the wintertime. We're going to take our new piece and make sure we don't have any dirt or crud or anything on it that we put it in there. And in reverse fashion, we're going to go ahead and just push that back in. It's always best to actually get the first part of that screwed in so it's locked in. And then you're going to go ahead and put this packing nut back in. Which is sometimes easier said than done. But we're going to get it. We're going to go ahead and kind of, oh, didn't catch it. Maybe I got to screw that in a little bit further. There we go. Now we got it. So I'm going to screw that in as far as I can by hand. I'm going to go ahead and finish closing that off. Then I'm going to go ahead and snug that packing nut. Now I'm not going to over tighten that packing nut because I don't want to, completely tighten it until it stops. Because, a year from now when I need to tighten that packing nut to stop it from leaking, or 2 years from now, 3 years from now, from constant use, I want to be able to have some left there to snug that up. So I don't have to rebuild it every single year when I want to use this thing. All right, so before I put that cap on, I'm going to run back in the house here, the customer's house here real quick. It's going to take me maybe about 30 seconds. I'm going to go back in and turn the water on so that we can go ahead and test this device out. Be right back.
A few moments later.
Okay, you can see the water is actually on. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it back off. You see how that water's draining out of there? Well, when your hose is hooked up to that, that water can't drain back out. So in the cold months, you wanna make sure your hose is unhooked. But that's basically it. From here, I'm gonna go ahead and, since I didn't break either one of these caps, I'm gonna go ahead and just use the new one. I'm going to put it on there like this and just kind of snap it into place, and that's it. That is actually how you rebuild a Woodford hose spigot. But again, all brands are going to be very similar to this one. They're just going to be different parts. So I will include the part number for this rebuild kit for the vacuum breaker on the description down below. I'd like to remind you again, go ahead and click that subscribe button down there in the lower right hand corner. Like and comment on our videos, as it does help us tremendously to keep bringing you this useful content. You folks enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.